Whenever it is time to decide which anime to watch next, I never really know what to pick. Instead of being any sane person and picking shows that have a very positive general consensus, or continuing the next season of a show that I'm trying to keep up with, I tend to start yet another series. Usually I scroll through my giant plan to watch list, which basically contains every anime in existence, and let my gut choose the next one, since I'm willing to watch just about anything. I may not have very high expectations for some of the shows I watch, but I've always lived by the motto, you never know if you'll like something until you've given it a chance. Even with these bad shows, sometimes I try to look more at the positives than the negatives of them. In this video, I want to talk about 3 anime, each possessing very long and very specific titles, ones that include the entire synopsis of the story. For each one of these shows, I had low expectations going into them, but expected at least some basic and cheap laughs, which they accomplished in providing. However, what I wasn't expecting was that each one of these shows surprised me with something else, whether it was a concept, a message, or the execution of something within it, which was done well. By no means are these shows life-altering, must-watches, or even very good. As a matter of fact, I consider only one of the 3 to be good in this case. It's just that I was taken aback by a series with low expectations going in, showcasing more than anticipated. Something within each of these anime is well done, which I wasn't expecting, no matter how small. Let's start off with the oddest of the 3 shows, even though all 3 are definitely odd in their own right. Reborn as a vending machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon. Many people hear that title and immediately think, who the hell would watch that garbage? Me. It's aimed at people like me who like bizarre and oftentimes stupid stuff like that. Many of these absurd shows are nice to watch, letting you relax since it's a basic watch, not forcing you to pay attention to every detail within the story. And they also have a certain comedic aspect that you grow accustomed to. Just turn your brain off to these shows and enjoy. Specifically with this series, it provides some really enjoyable laughs, and the execution of it is surprisingly good. The vending machine anime is exactly what you'd expect from the series. A man is reborn in a fantasy world as a vending machine and now wanders the dungeon, just as the title suggests. He cannot communicate to others except through some minor phrases and is unable to move around on his own, relying on others to do so. Named Boxo by his most loyal customer who also found him first, Lamas, he sells his various products and services including food, oxygen, and even condoms to the people since he needs money to continue functioning. With the extra money Boxo earns, he is able to level up, acquiring new products, transformations, and abilities, becoming a staple in many people's lives and an essential part of the community. I've watched my fair share of shows with very weird premises. I've noticed that a big deciding factor for whether or not the idea succeeds is if the author wants to actually push that central idea to the forefront of the series, using it to the fullest. Make that bizarre idea the focal point of it, having everything from the story to the comedy and everything in between revolve around that one idea, which will ultimately help improve the enjoyability of the series. You'd be surprised with how many shows start with that initial weird premise and then essentially abandon it, the very thing that got people interested enough in the series to start with. This results in the idea trying to become something that it is not. What I'm trying to say here is that basically every single detail should have something related to the very specific and odd premise in order for the series to work. Some shows do a good job with their weird and oddly specific premise, such as Cautious Hero, the hero is overpowered but overly cautious. What that series is about is blatantly obvious. Within it, both the comedy and action always focus on being overly cautious, with a good reason behind it. In its case, it also helps that the comedy and characters are good. Other series do a very poor job with their bizarre premise, like I've somehow become stronger when I improved my farming related skills. Yes, the main character is overpowered in it thanks to his farming skills, but that aspect was heavily underutilized. This weird concept rarely trickled into the comedy or story, except for the random moment here and there where the main character, Al Wayne, would insta-kill a dragon with a carrot, for example. In its case, the comedy, story, and the animation weren't good either. The anime Reborn as a vending machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon's biggest strength is the execution of the series. The fact that it takes this extremely bizarre concept of making the main character a vending machine and goes all in with it. The vending machine anime takes this weird idea and actually makes a decently crafted, albeit odd story around vending. If you pay attention to the story, it is clearly written in such a way to slide in various jokes, moments, and details where anything about vending machines is at the forefront of the series. Boxo is this overpowered inanimate object with a soul inside of it, which is stupid but also a bit funny. He possesses a really weird obsession with and obscure knowledge of vending machines and uses it to his advantage, which in turn helps him and his friends get out of sticky situations. Throughout the series, Boxo transforms into several different types of vending machines. Sometimes he's a food vending machine, other times medicinal. Upon defeating a boss, he collects a coin from them. Even at times throughout the show, there's small history lessons of various vending machine usage, and it includes types of vending machines that you either didn't know about or didn't think about being one. No, this anime isn't for intellectuals looking for enlightenment, nor am I saying that Reborn as a vending machine is a fantastic show, but it accomplishes its goal of being a chill and funny show using its concept to the fullest. The show is simple, and if you don't enjoy the humor within it, understandably, you won't like the show. It's been greenlit for a second season, which I'm excited for. I would be lying here if I didn't say that I wasn't worried for its future though. Sometimes a joke can only be built upon or used so much before it becomes stale or annoying, so I hope that the comedy continues to hold up. Reborn as a vending machines anime definitely could use an improvement in the animation department as well. As of right now, it has passable animation, but an improvement would definitely be welcomed. I don't need Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen level animation, just a small improvement will suffice. I do want to state here that I was surprised that the season finale was done pretty well, and I'd like to see the rest of the series done like that at the very least. One anime down, the next one I'll talk about is I couldn't become a hero, so I reluctantly decided to get a job. Raoul Chaser always dreamt of becoming a hero and defeating the Demon King, so he entered the hero training program to pursue his dream. Unfortunately for him, the Demon King was defeated, meaning peace has returned to the world. Since the Demon King no longer exists, the hero program is cancelled as it's no longer necessary. 2 years later, Raoul is forced to move on and reluctantly seeks employment at a magic shop, which sells all sorts of electronics. His mundane life in retail is soon radically changed when the store gets a brand new hire named Pheno Bloodstone, who just so happens to be the daughter of the Demon King. Throughout the anime, I couldn't become a hero, so I reluctantly decided to get a job. It is Raoul's job to train Pheno, which comes with all sorts of shenanigans and problems, but at the same time he notices that his life has become much more enjoyable. Going into the show, I expected it to not be very good. It is an ecchi show with a stupid title, so expectations were rock bottom for it, but I wanted some basic cheap laughs, and that was ultimately provided by the anime. So what does the anime I couldn't become a hero, so I reluctantly decided to get a job do well? I think it portrays the next step well. Many characters in that world were looking forward to becoming heroes. For characters like Raoul and Eri, it was their dream, but since the Demon Empire collapsed, there's no longer a need for them. Their hopes are crushed, their dream job is no more, and all the skills they learned along the way are now useless. So what's next for them? Raoul moves on and decides to get a job at an electronics store, but still views himself as a failure because he couldn't become a hero, hurting himself mentally. Many of his friends struggle moving on, still holding out hope that heroes are needed once more. They're even willing to go to great lengths to force the issue. What happens if or when your aspirations become unrealistic? Sometimes life doesn't go your way, but what you do next after the failure or disappointment is important. Are you going to be like Eri, wallowing in self-pity, letting it affect you, or are you like Raoul, picking yourself up and working hard towards your next goal? The best thing to do is move on, applying the same amount of hard work you did for your dream on that next step, applying yourself just like Raoul does in his new mundane and perhaps undesirable job, still going above and beyond. Raoul realizes that by being negative and sulking all the time, it was making his life no longer enjoyable, but once he quit with this mentality, thanks in part to Pheno and her contrasting perspective and different outlook on life, he's able to enjoy his life once more. Thanks to Pheno, Raoul also realizes that he can still be a hero, or helpful in many different ways, not just as a person swinging a giant sword fighting off evil. When this series focused on what it did well, that next step after failure or disappointment, I thought it was solid, but still not anything special. I wasn't expecting much depth from the series, but was pleasantly surprised by it when it was showcased. However, the characters were pretty boring overall, as was the general story. And the final anime that surprised me with a lesson that I wasn't expecting is when supernatural battles became commonplace. One day during a literature club meeting, 5 kids randomly find themselves gaining supernatural abilities. Tomio gains the ability to manipulate time. Hakoto can control each of the 5 elements. Sayumi can return people and objects to their original state, and Chifuyu can create objects out of nothing. However, nobody is more excited than the resident Chunibyo main character, Jirai. You'd assume he'd gain the best power, however his power is easily outclassed by his 4 female counterparts. Unfortunately for him, his ability to manipulate dark flames is worthless. Even after gaining these powers, life for the most part is normal for these super-powered students, as the 4 girls romantically chase after Jirai, while also dealing with this supernatural from time to time. However, the anime's title, When Supernatural Battles Became Commonplace, isn't very accurate since supernatural power usage in it is rather limited. Before I get into what the surprising part of this series is, I need to provide the definition of Chunibyo for those who do not know. It's somebody who wants to be the center of attention, somebody who thinks they have secret powers or knowledge. Oftentimes the person acts like an anime character, which in this case makes Jirai pretty annoying for much of the show. When supernatural battles became commonplace sends a fantastic message to the viewer, and it is showcased through Jirai. Everyone wants to be the chosen one, the main character within a story, or in this case, life in general. To be chosen as such is happiness for the individual, since they seek the approval of others, worrying about what others may think. Oftentimes they conform to what others want, not acting true to themselves. Jirai, however, is the exact opposite of that. Yes, Jirai does like being different and still seeks the approval of others, but he'll never do something that he doesn't want to do. Jirai is always unapologetically himself. Because of this, he has a carefree personality and needs to, since he is a goofy chunibyo. He is persistent about doing what he wants to do, never considering what others may think of his weird shenanigans and outbursts, because he enjoys what he does. This series tells people to be like Jirai, to not be afraid to unapologetically be yourself. Don't act fake or try to be something that you are not. In Jirai's case, it's one of the several reasons why each of the girls fall in love with him. Unfortunately, this anime half-assed being multiple different genres instead of really focusing on one of them, leading to an overall mediocre series. I was actually surprised about the lack of power usage and when supernatural battles became commonplace. I assumed since the title states that supernatural battles were becoming commonplace, I'd see more than 2 or 3 such scenes. As a matter of fact, there was a lack of power usage overall. Since it's a comedy series, I was expecting to see a fairly consistent, irresponsible usage of powers, and that wasn't really the case, making me a bit disappointed in the show because I felt it was underutilized. Any scenes involving superpowers felt completely out of place or unnecessary in the series. I would have liked it more if it leaned into the superpowers while maintaining the romance harem core of it. If it did that instead, I think the anime could have actually flourished. However, it focuses far too much on the harem aspect and not nearly enough on the supernatural, ultimately being a crappy, cheap harem anime. The characters had some decent moments, but weren't better than average in my opinion. The romance within it definitely wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but it definitely wasn't good either. The story was better than expected, and has some potential after what takes place in the anime, but I don't expect much of an improvement. All 3 of these super long titled series with low expectations surprised me with certain things they did well, no matter how small they may be. This video isn't a full-on review like I normally do, but I still feel obligated to give a rating for each one of these anime I talked about. So I give Reborn as a vending machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon a 6.75 out of 10. I'd recommend checking it out if you like really stupid concepts and humor. It's an okay story filled with some really good surprising laughs. You could view this as one of those guilty pleasure shows. I couldn't become a hero, so I reluctantly decided to get a job. Gets a 4.5 out of 10. Obviously from my rating it's nothing special. It's an ecchi series that's more often boring than anything else, but I was surprised with the depth that it had at times. When supernatural battles became commonplace, gets a 5 out of 10. Personally wouldn't recommend it. It's a basic harem show that tries to be funny and can be, but overall tries a bit too hard in doing so. If you're expecting tons of moments with the characters using their powers, look elsewhere, because it doesn't really happen all that much, which is disappointing because those moments are solid. Thanks so much for watching. If you have watched any of the 3 aforementioned anime within this video, tell me what you thought about them in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.